If you're considering White Columns or the Manor Golf and Country Club, there is one decision that can either elevate your lifestyle or leave you feeling like you bought into the wrong community entirely. By the way, we help people just like you every single week who want to move or sell in the Atlanta area, and we'd love to help you too. The best way to reach us is by calling or texting at 770-626-5712 or booking an appointment using the link below. You'll find everything you need in the description. And make sure you stick around because at the end of this, I'm going to break down exactly which types of buyers regret choosing the Manor and why it happens more often than you'd think. Let's start here because this is where most people get it wrong. White Columns and the Manor Golf and Country Club are not just two golf communities in Milton. They represent two completely different ways of living. White Columns feels established, comfortable, traditional, and it's the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where there's a sense of history and consistency. The Manor is different. It feels elevated, more private, more curated. It's designed to make a statement from the entrance to the homes to the overall experience. So before we even talk about homes or price points, you have to ask yourself, do I want a community that feels familiar and connected, or one that feels exclusive and elevated? Because trying to force one into the other is where people start making the wrong decision.
Now let's talk about where these communities sit and how they impact your daily life. White Columns is a bit more centrally located within Milton. You're going to have easier access to downtown Alpharetta, Avalon, and even 400. Everything feels a little bit more connected. And in the Manor, on the other hand, it's more tucked away. And for some people, that's the exact appeal that they're looking for. It feels quieter, it feels more private, it feels more removed from the day-to-day noise. But here's the trade-off. That added privacy can also mean a little more drive time to everything. So the real question becomes, do you want convenience built into your location, or do you want separation from it?
All right, let's just talk about the community, the vibe, and the feel of both these amazing communities.
So this is where the difference really starts to show up. In White Columns, you're going to notice more mature trees, established landscaping, homes that have kind of evolved over time. There's character. It feels like a true neighborhood. People are out walking, kids are playing. There's a rhythm to it. If you step into the Manor, everything's going to feel more intentional. The homes are larger, the streets are more expansive, the overall presentation is elevated. It feels less like a neighborhood and more like a luxury environment. So again, it comes back to lifestyle. Do you want warmth and familiarity or presence and prestige?
All right, let's talk about the homes and the architecture in each one of these communities.
Yeah, this is where people actually fall in love. I mean, in White Columns, you'll find more variety in homes. You'll see some traditional homes, some that are fully updated, and some with the original character. You might find a home that's been beautifully renovated right next to one that still reflects the way it was when it was built. In the Manor, there's more consistency among the homes. There's larger estates, newer construction, high-end finishes are across the board. Everything feels like it's more aligned at a luxury level. And the lots are typically larger and have more privacy built into them. So the trade-off is clear. White Columns gives you flexibility and value. The Manor gives you scale and consistency. So let's talk about what you're actually paying for. In White Columns, it offers you more entry point type homes. You can get into a golf community lifestyle at a lower price point than you can in the Manor. There's still value there, especially for buyers who want Milton, but still want options. The Manor has a higher floor, in other words, a higher starting price point. You're paying for newer construction, larger homes, a more exclusive feel. So again, the question becomes, Are you buying value or are you buying a statement? Neither's wrong, but understand that difference. That's everything.
Let's talk about golf and amenities because that's lifestyle. Both of them have amazing lifestyles. So let's talk about each one.
So White Columns has an established golf course and it has a very active membership. It feels very social, accessible, community driven. Manor brings a different level of prestige. Tom Watson designed golf course, an upscale clubhouse, resort style amenities. It feels more like an experience. Again, ask yourself, do you want a club that feels like it's part of your daily life? Or do you want one that feels like a luxury escape?
All right. So what about social life and community culture?
This is one of the most important and overlooked differences. In White Columns, it's easier to plug in. For our events, for families, for long-term residents, it's social in a very natural way. In the Manor, it's quieter, it's more private, it's more selective on how people engage, and that does not mean social. It just looks different. So you need to be honest with yourself. Do you want built-in community, or do you prefer more privacy in your day-to-day life?
Okay, so let's look about a buyer profile and the schools in both these great communities.
So both communities sit in top North Fulton school zones, so you can't go wrong there. But the buyer profiles tend to be very different. White Columns attracts more long-term families, people putting down roots in the area, where the Manor often draws executives or relocation buyers, people looking for a higher end lifestyle shift. So it's less about the schools in the Manor and more about who you'll be surrounded by day to day.
All right, so resale value and strategy, a seller's, a seller's strategy here.
Right. So especially if you're thinking long term, this is important. White Columns has a broader buyer pool in general. That means a more consistent demand for homes there and smoother resale when the time comes to sell. In the Manor, it's more niche. There are fewer buyers that can afford that price point, but a strong upside if the home is positioned correctly. It's not about which is better. It's about understanding how easy will this be to sell later and who will my buyer be?
Yeah, so what is the biggest mistake that we see?
Well, let's go back to what I mentioned in the beginning. The biggest mistake people make when choosing between these two is falling in love with the house and ignoring the community. They buy based upon finishes, square footage, and price, and they overlook how their life will actually feel there. And that's when people start to regret their decision. Because they don't just live in a house, you live in the environment around it.
Yeah, so who would regret moving into the Manor?
So here's the truth most people won't say. The buyers who regret choosing the Manor are the ones who actually wanted more connection, more activity, more of a neighborhood feel. If you're someone who thrives on community, who wants day-to-day interaction, the Manor can feel a little bit too quiet over time, even if everything else looks perfect.
Yeah, and in the Manor, a lot of people think you're driving through the country. So if they come from different parts of the country and they're like, ooh, that's country. So at the end of the day, both White Columns and the Manor are incredible communities, but they're built for different lifestyles. And the right choice isn't about which one is better. It's about the one that fits you how you actually want to live. So if you're thinking about making a move, whether you're buying or selling, we're helping clients already in this area buy and sell. You can reach us at 770-626-5712, or you can connect with us using the links below.